Hi guys, DevilHunterXYZ, and today I decided to do some gameplay on Devil May Cry, well more specifically doing Bloody Palace on all of them. I just recently finished up the Evil Within series and decided, since I have a little bit of time, I decided to go back to try some of these old games again. And, well, you know what, I wanted to do Bloody Palace back when I did the recordings for Devil May Cry, but I just didn't really have the time back then. And especially for this game, where Bloody Palace was just a huge grind. I mean, the last time I did Bloody Palace for Devil May Cry 2 was about 6 years ago. And I think back then, the farthest I ever got was around, like, level 6,000. And I'll tell you, it's a really huge grind. So what you're seeing here is actually my first time going through the entire Bloody Palace from start to finish. Well, I guess maybe finish could be in quotes, because technically there is no way for you to really beat Bloody Palace in this game. As once you hit level 9,999, it just keeps repeating over and over until you die. And I guess in the case if you were doing it for the trophies or the achievements, I guess it'd be a huge hassle just trying to make it all the way through. Well, anyway, in the case of Bloody Palace and how it works compared to the other games, it's more or less the same, although here, since this was the first time Bloody Palace was even introduced, it kind of seemed that it wasn't really tested too well. And by that, I mean it gets very difficult just after the first 1,000 levels, because after that point, the enemies start getting difficult and entering their double trigger. Well, I remember beforehand even attempting to do Bloody Palace, I'd try looking up for some guides or any strategies to try to get through Bloody Palace as quickly or easily as possible. And while I do have the official Devil May Cry 2 strategy guide, it pretty much gives you a very vague description of what Bloody Palace is or how to even progress through it. And honestly, it's not like it even gives me a list of all the demons I face in each level, because I don't know if it's me, but it feels like the enemies are more or less randomized every time you go through Bloody Palace. I mean, that's just what I feel. But in any case, from strategies, what I've heard is mostly stick to Trish or Dante, as they're kind of the easier characters to really get through Bloody Palace. And also beforehand, farm for some red orbs so you can actually try to buy out most of everything from the God of Time statue, as you're more or less going to be needing to use Vital Stars quite often, and also Devil Stars too. And if you're lucky, you could probably get through maybe all of Bloody Palace or reach up to the last level in roughly about maybe 5 to 6 hours. I mean, that really depends on what levels you take and what enemies you'll be fighting. Well, anyway, besides all of that, for those who want to know exactly how Bloody Palace really works, it's pretty simple. In each level, you essentially face a group of demons, and then afterwards you get a choice of 3 portals to enter. One portal sends you up 1 level, another portal sends you up 10 levels, and then the third one sends you up another 100 levels. And essentially, I guess your best choice is to keep using the 100 level portals to quickly get through as fast as possible. But you know, there are occasional times where you might have to kind of change paths and might have to just go through a level at a time. I mean, from strategies I've heard is to go through the first 10 levels so that way you can face bosses afterwards, because every 10 levels you will be facing a boss. Although sometimes it's not just a boss by itself, sometimes you're going to be facing enemies along with the boss, so it might get difficult depending on the type of boss you'll be facing. But then afterwards, if it gets too difficult, then you switch back to just regular demons. And for the most part, the enemies themselves aren't too bad, they just really have a lot of health to deal with. I say really the only enemy that's going to really give you problems are all the goat demons, the ones that fly in the air and shoot projectiles at you, which it's going to be a huge hassle just trying to really avoid all those attacks, especially when there's like 4 or 5 of them shooting projectiles at once. And honestly, I say the only strategy at that point is to build up your double trigger and then use air raid or the round trip technique. I mean, that would be the quickest way to get rid of the goats. Also to keep in mind is you won't be facing all the enemies and all the demons from the game in Bloody Palace, as I guess some of them would be pretty impossible to really incorporate in such a small area like this. I mean, for instance, you won't be facing any of the blades or the eruptions, any of the underwater enemies, as well as you won't be facing bosses like Arius Argosax or Nephastorus, as they would be too massive to really incorporate here. Well, speaking of small spaces, you are going to be fighting all the demons in Bloody Palace in these small cube-shaped rooms, which pretty much limits your mobility of where you can actually go. Which I kind of find ironic, since the main game, you're fighting demons in more or less an open environment. I mean, it's almost like an open world Devil May Cry game compared to the rest of the series. In fact, you could pretty much spend half the time literally just running away from the demons if you really want to, and do a speed run, and, just avoid doing conflicts altogether. But no, you're stuck here having to face enemies and at the same time also fighting against the camera, which now and then the camera will pose a huge problem, as it would pretty much block your view at certain times depending on the enemies, or every now and then, like right now. Seriously, could they put the camera at any worse spot? It's sad to say it though, I mean, the camera is a huge issue. I guess it's always been a huge issue for every Devil May Cry game, although I think it's kind of the worst when it comes to this game. Well, with camera issues aside, I also found out something interesting as I was browsing for guides and strategies, and that the European version of the game, there's actually a cheat code to allow you to have infinite devil trigger. And with that, I kind of thought it sucked that the North American version didn't have anything like that. I mean, we didn't have super costumes, super characters like the other games. And with that, what I usually see people do with the infinite devil trigger is they usually play as Dante. They wait until their health gets down to the red, that way they can activate their super morph ability, and with that they have infinite super morph, and they can easily blow through all of Bloody Palace in like under an hour. And pretty much tossing all strategies aside, they can just use fireballs and laser swords to get through it pretty quickly. Alright, with all my rants and explanations behind me, I'm just going to skip to the last level. Of course, I'm using Devil May Cry 1 Dante. And for what I've been hearing is the last level, the first time in the last level, you'll be facing the Despaired Embodied. Of course, I'm not sure if that's 100% true, so don't quote me on that. Yep, as I can see already, it's very difficult. Has a lot of health, but the other problem is the area is just way too small to have this boss battle. And the camera is making it a lot worse. It's like jumping all over the place. Yeah, I guess I'm having to stick with just the machine gun attack. Actually, at this point, I might need to use a star. Actually, I'm gonna do that real quick. I still have a little bit left. And believe it or not, I had all my vital stars maxed out, and I'm almost out of it right now. And you know what, I guess also having the double star probably another good idea, since I only have one left. I didn't have it all maxed out anyway, I only had like 10 stored up. Yeah, there's no way I can lay one melee attack on him, I'm just having to dodge his sword strikes and his whip attacks. And also these projectiles, they're almost as bad as the goats. I guess also the rainstorm attack is kind of an issue too, at least here, since hardly any place to move. If I'm gonna try to do something melee. I just think it's also weird that Devil May Cry 1 Dante has the Force Edge. I would expect him to have the Alistair, but I guess they couldn't implement lightning abilities for his sword. Actually, I'm surprised I almost got his health completely down. Actually, it was pretty quick. I thought it would be a lot worse. As long as I keep dodging his attacks, or at least try to dodge his attacks, and just me shooting him relentlessly, I could probably make it. Alright, looks like I got some double trigger build-up. I'm just gonna keep attacking him until I get more, and then I'm most likely just gonna finish him with my machine guns. Or I guess, I don't know what they call it here, rapid fire, I guess. I know his mid-base seems like he's more attacking fiercely. I'm gonna try to see if I can finish him without using another star. Although if I have to, then I have to. Just a little bit left. Come on. Almost there, come on. Alright, good enough. And that takes care of that. Alright. And this is what I got after playing 6.5 hours of Bloody Palace. Well, I guess next I'll do Devil May Cry 3. This is DevilHunterXYZ, and until next time.